Hello friends and potential friends. I'm not sure if I ever really pointed this out before, but up here at the back of the house, this is all catnip. Grows wild around here. More over here by the pump house. And more over here by the house. Once in a while I'll break a branch of that off and give it to Mamba, though he really seems to enjoy the cat grass a lot more than the catnip. And speaking of cat grass, that's about all we got growing inside in the lab. Mom's moved everything else outside. But I keep growing the cat grass because Mamba likes it. And today is Sunday. I have no idea what the date is. Don't really care. But did lawn work yesterday. Weed whacking, mowing. Got 2 days to get that done. Today I hope to get out here and rake up some of the grass clippings to use as mulch, because that stuff works great in the garden. And here's Mom's outside workshop. One thing we just discovered yesterday, it appears that one of the mulberries that I took cuttings from last year has decided to grow. Because that sure looks like a mulberry leaf in there with Mom's pineapples. All the pretty flowers. A few little seedlings down at this end, mostly basil and cilantro that's bolting. And more bolting cilantro over here in the tower. We have to stay on top of this thing daily, just try to keep it moist enough to grow something. But over here in the kitchen garden, things are coming along nicely. We've been eating Swiss chard. Oh, that stuff is so good. And it just keeps on producing more and more and more. This is a summer squash next to the chard. And there's some leeks. Peppers are not doing real well this year for some reason. But the eggplant sure is. In fact, I'm expecting to see some fruit on that thing pretty soon. It had 2 blossoms on it earlier this week. There's some chives. Basil's doing well. Kale is doing good. We got one small head of lettuce still cabbage over there going. And one sprawling tomato. This is a Better Boy tomato. And I discovered yesterday that we have a ripe tomato in there. Can you see that down there? Yeah, that's going to be our first ripe tomato. In fact, it looks like I better get that off of there. Get it in the house and maybe fry up some bacon. Yep, first one of the year. Not huge, but it sure looks good, and I bet it tastes good too. Well, it looks like the plums are starting to ripen, at least on the main tree here. There aren't as many of them this year as there have been the last couple of years, but we'll still get a few. They are growing though. And some of them are even right down here where I can see them. Nice and easy to reach. So those will be a nice tasty treat. And meanwhile, the mulberries are just about done for the year. I could probably get another half bucket, but I'm not sure if my back will let me. There are still a few hanging in the tree. but they are starting to wind down. The ones out in the pasture have already given it up for the year. Yeah, I could get another half bucket, maybe even a full bucket. But we got a bunch of them in the house, in the freezer, and in jars. So I'm not sure we could even eat all the rest of these. I think most of them will be left here for the birds. They're still sweet though. Back here in the main garden, we got broccoli over here, my one lone asparagus spear, a few tomatoes that got planted later. They're starting to perk up pretty nice, so they'll be growing pretty soon. And then that one thing that we still haven't figured out what it is. That could just be a weed, but it sure is healthy. And in the main tomato bed, let's see, this one says it's an Everglades. Not sure about the one back behind it. These are all growing good. That is definitely a Praxis cherry tomato. And it does have tomatoes on it. Yeah, there's a few down there. I really expected the Praxis to be the first one to produce ripe tomatoes for me this year, but looks like that one better boy got ahead of him. And then down at this end, well, did I mention the catnip grows like a weed around here? That one volunteered to come into the raised bed garden next to the Praxis. And Praxis has got a bunch of tomatoes on it. They just haven't started ripening yet. But overall, tomato bed's looking pretty good. Got more cleanup done here. And, well, that's a change. An hour ago, there wasn't any water in the ditch. So, the water is beginning to flow again. And hopefully my dam will get more of it to come out into the pasture. And speaking of pasture, I got a pumpkin or squash vine over here that has grown all the way to the pasture. I hope you don't get tired of weekly garden updates, but things grow so fast around here, I pretty much have to bring the camera out damn near every day. For example, remember this guy from a week or so ago? It's volleyball size now. And there's a spaghetti squash right next to it. And I can no longer whack the weeds down here because of all the vines starting to spread out. Here's the bigger spaghetti squash. Still about 6, maybe 6.5 inches long. Another one right next to it. Another tiny one still hanging on right next to that. And there's another pumpkin down at my feet. Another spaghetti squash in here. And I'm pretty sure this is a pumpkin vine here, because that doesn't look like a spaghetti squash. And in case that's not enough, there's another one right over here. And probably some more hanging on there that I'm just not seeing right at the moment. That thing is as much out of the bed as it is in the bed. Mom's garlic scapes that she wants to do a seed experiment with are coming along nicely. This one over here is really pretty. Turning all purple on us. Yep. I've never tried growing garlic from seed, but hey, it had to start somewhere. And then down at the bottom, something you haven't seen yet, I don't think. We got a few potatoes planted in here that Mom had in the kitchen. They started sprouting, so we started planting. And we'll see what they do. I don't know how much time they need, but they've only got a couple of months. And then of course the watermelon over here, not really growing fast. And there's that one squash vine that's trying to get over to it. Actually, I think that one's a pumpkin. Fruit on it is round instead of oblong. So it better get growing quick. But that's about it for this week, I think. Everything's growing nice. And now I need to get over and start raking up some hay, because the water's starting to flow and I need to get the grass clippings up before it gets all wet out there. But I have been doing a lot of yard work. You can actually see the ditch over here today. But that's it for this week. I'll see you next time.